tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Brings a great deal of relief. There's still a lot of unanswered questions.
A judge rules the man accused in Vancouver's Lapu Lapu Day Festival attack is fit to stand trial as victims' families wait.
We need justice.
Plus,
just to get one or two projects going in Canada, you haven't even caught up to the rest of the world.
what will make the list of Canada's nation-building projects? Oil and gas supporters, environmental advocates, and some Indigenous groups weigh in.
We truly believe that the environmental values of the land are far more important.
And calls for calm after American conservative activist Charlie Kirk is shot and killed.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. A BC judge has ruled the suspect in the deadly Lapu Lapu Day Festival attack in Vancouver is fit to stand trial. Kaiji Adam Lowe's prosecution will now proceed, and as Georgie Smythe reports, he's now been charged with dozens more crimes.
Do a series of virtual.
Outside of Vancouver court, a sense of relief.
I think this is the ruling that many in the community were hoping for.
Inside, Kaiji Adam Lowe, the man accused of killing 11 people at a Lapu Lapu Day street festival in April, appeared via video, expressionless in a blue jumpsuit. Lowe was under the care of a mental health team at the time of the alleged car ramming attack. After a 3-day hearing, a judge has found him fit to stand trial.
We understand that this process just takes time, and it's likely that the pace will never be, the pace that families and victims want in terms of receiving answers.
At issue was not the state of Lowe's mental health on April 26, but rather his present condition. He now faces 31 new charges of attempted murder. Inside the court is currently covered by a publication ban, which limits what the media can report on. It's being challenged by outlets including the CBC, who argue it's too broad. There's a lot to balance in this sensitive and high-profile case, say legal minds.
And it's up to the judge to find that only the relevant evidence is heard, and no doubt the judge will caution the public, caution any prospective jury, that we have to be clinical, we have to be careful, and we have to decide the case based on the evidence.
Lowe was ordered to remain detained in hospital. A ruling on the publication ban is expected this week. Georgie Smythe, CBC News, Vancouver.
The man accused of stabbing 3 people at a Chinatown festival 2 years ago says he was mentally and morally sick at the time of the attack. Blair Donnelly has pleaded not guilty to 3 counts of aggravated assault. When a Crown prosecutor asked if he understood what would happen if found not criminally responsible for the attack in Vancouver, Donnelly told the court that one outcome would see him sent to jail, another would see him sent back to the forensic psychiatric hospital. When the Crown asked him which he'd prefer, Donnelly said he wanted to go, quote, where God wants me to go. The Crown says Donnelly acknowledges he was the person who stabbed the 3 victims. On Thursday, Prime Minister Mark Carney is set to release a list of the first projects considered in the national interest, aimed at reducing reliance on the United States. Radio-Canada has confirmed that no pipeline is on that list, although it has never been completely ruled out. Mira Bain says more on what projects various groups want built.
Though Ottawa has made it a goal to turn Canada into an energy superpower, CBC Radio-Canada has confirmed from sources that no new pipeline project is on the list of nation-building projects, expected to be formally announced Thursday in Edmonton.
We'll announce the first tranche, the first batch of these projects that will increase Canada's independence.
Trans Mountain is the last oil pipeline project to be completed in Canada. Some proponents of oil and gas expansion say companies are put off by the extensive requirements for projects, including environmental assessments.
Canada is so far behind. Just to get one or two projects going in Canada, you haven't even caught up to the rest of the world. You're not even close to the United States. You're not close to Australia.
There is debate on what kinds of projects Canadians want to support the country's economy. Environment groups are reinforcing climate goals.
Canadians as a whole don't want to subsidize fossil fuels.
And without government money, the economics just aren't there.
The process of how some major projects are being prioritized and pushed through, meanwhile, is being challenged by some First Nations.
There shouldn't be any projects fast-tracked unless there's considerable, deep, substantive consultation with the First Nations impact.
Still, some BC business leaders hope to see a few energy projects make the list. And Alberta's premier says there is still a possibility in the future for a new pipeline project.
And I'm very encouraged about where we're heading, but don't think that the list as it appears is the final list. We have been assured that there is pathways to get projects on the list as they become ready to be on the list.
There is a big hurdle for oil and gas projects. No major pipeline companies have come forward to build a new project or so far publicly expressed a desire to develop a big new oil pipeline in Western Canada. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
Now, speaking of oil and gas, if you've had to fuel up a vehicle over the past few days, your wallet may be feeling a lot lighter than normal. As of Wednesday morning, some stations across Metro Vancouver were selling gas at $1.90 per litre. That's up from just $1.64 the night before. Petroleum analysts say it's partly due to at least 2 of California's 11 refineries closing down over environmental concerns. Analysts say that will likely lead to a 20% decline in output. Drivers are understandably feeling the pinch. The BC Conservative Party is criticizing the NDP government for not designating live animal inspection an essential service. That role has now been put on hold because of the BC GEU job action. The opposition critic says this puts animal welfare, food safety, and supply at risk.
And we have several, obviously, let's call them abattoirs or processing plants around British Columbia. Everything's ground to a halt because you have to have a provincial inspector at those facilities each day for 8 hours a day to inspect what's getting done there.
Patton says without those inspection services, small producers and processors and farm families would face an uncertain financial future. Some local ranchers tell CBC News they are not able to process meat from their cattle without those inspectors. BC's Agriculture Minister now says the province is working to make sure meat inspectors are designated as an essential service and says it's taking steps so slaughterhouses can stay open if and when they're affected by labor disruption. As 3 people vie to become the next leader of BC's Green Party, there's a controversy brewing over new memberships and how to verify they're all real people living in BC. As Katie DeRosa explains, one candidate says the validation process is just too complicated and they're looking at legal action.
With just days left until BC Green Party members start voting for their new leader, one leadership candidate is raising concerns about a new verification process meant to ensure all new members are real people.
Thousands of new members will be blocked from voting.
Emily Lowen says it's not fair that only new members have to verify their identity and is considering taking legal action.
This new verification process that's only applied to new members are disenfranchising those voters.
The BC Green Party has long waived the $10 membership fee for youth between 14 to 29. What's new this year is a verification process for new members to make sure they're real people and living in British Columbia. New members can be verified by showing ID to party staff in person, via an online meeting, or providing ID to a third-party company. The party's executive advisor says it's a needed step to avoid foreign interference.
We're doing ID verifications all the way up until the close of the voting period on September 22nd. We are emphasizing this should not and will not stop someone from voting if they want to vote.
The 2 other leadership candidates, Jonathan Kerr and Adam Bremner-Aikens, are fine with the new process.
I was chatting with one woman, she's a 95-year-old, and she didn't really know how to do the technology. So one of my volunteers helped her set up a Google Meet, and she did that online.
But overall, the process has been really smooth.
It's common for political parties to face controversy over new members signing up to vote in a leadership race. Allegations of voter fraud plagued David Eby's leadership campaign. The NDP disqualified his challenger, Anjali Appadurai, over allegations she used a third party to recruit supporters from the Greens. Janssen says Elections BC should take over party leadership races. For now, the 3 BC Green candidates will square off in a leadership debate on Saturday. The winner will be announced September 24th. Katie DeRosa, CBC News, Victoria.
Our science and climate specialist Darius Madavi here with the first look at the weather, and you are on thunderstorm watch.
That's right. So we saw considerably less lightning today than we did yesterday. You'll notice just minor risk today, according to Environment Canada's outlook, whereas we had a decent amount of yellow in the southern interior yesterday. So that's a little bit of good news. Now, that was in an area where we have seen the fire danger come down a little bit. You'll notice, again, more yellow, definitely, than last week. But really everywhere north of, say, Williams Lake continues to be in high to extreme fire danger. So a number of areas where if we do start to see thunderstorms pop up in the next week or so, we could very well see a significant number of new fire starts. Now, in terms of that smoke, that's also been a concern. These fires, this complex of fires, continue to put off a ton of smoke affecting the Central Coast. We'll talk more about the smoke and maybe some rain later in the show.
All right, Darius, thanks very much.
Thank you.
One of the biggest names in American right-wing political circles has been killed. 31-year-old Charlie Kirk was shot in the neck during a university speaking event in Utah. Katie Simpson has more on the shooting that has prompted strong words on both sides of America's political spectrum.
That's a lot of people, Utah. Charlie Kirk drew an enthusiastic crowd, as he typically did, for a debate at Utah Valley University. Bring the best libs that Utah has to offer. About 20 minutes in, an audience questioner appeared to challenge one of his views.
Do you know how many transgender Americans have been mass shooters over the last 10 years?
Too many.
We're stopping the video here. Seconds later, you can hear a single gunshot, a murder in broad daylight witnessed by thousands of people.
You just hear the gunshot and I'm sorry. You just see his neck just open up and there's just so much blood that just came out.
He fell backwards, went to the side. The audience went to their knees.
Holy shit! Panic hits and the crowd scatters. Screaming and scared people begin running for their lives. Kirk was rushed to hospital by his private security, but there was nothing doctors could do to save him.
I want to be very clear that this is a political assassination.
President Donald Trump announced Kirk's death on social media, writing, "No one understood or had the heart of the youth in the United States of America better than Charlie. He was loved and admired by all, especially me." Kirk's friends in the MAGA media movement grieved in real time.
They're reporting that Charlie has died.
Kirk founded Turning Point USA, a powerful conservative advocacy group for young Americans. He's credited with helping Trump win, connecting him with younger, first-time voters, particularly men.
The right to life is paramount.
His debates generated millions of views online, unapologetically far-right on all the U.S. culture war issues, advocating for women to stay home instead of work, anti-immigration, pro-faith, anti-transgender rights.
Violence will not silence the people of the United States of America. Charlie Kirk, he spoke his mind, and under threats, he continued to speak his mind, and I find that to be admirable.
The president ordered flags lowered, including at the White House. And over in Congress,
please rise for a moment of prayer for Charlie Kirk and his family.
But the silence was interrupted by squabbling on the floor.
The House will be in order.
As the political blame game begins.
Look at the rhetoric taking place around this. The president was literally shot over this. I've been saying this time and time again. You cannot call people Nazis, fascists, and expect this type of stuff to not happen.
The wizarding world of Harry Potter is set to take over Stanley Park in November. While incredibly popular elsewhere, the price tag is raising some eyebrows. Among other things, the cost of a Hogwarts-like experience. Coming up next. A Harry Potter-themed attraction slated to arrive in Stanley Park is stirring debate over a private company's use of public outdoor space and supporting the work of franchise creator J.K. Rowling, who has funded and advocated against transgender rights. But as Liam Britton reports, the conversation also includes the cost of getting in.
Tickets are on sale now for the Harry Potter Forbidden Forest experience at the site of Vancouver's Stanley Park train. Now, organizers are promising magical creatures, wizarding wonders, all set in a forested walk scenario. And while it might be an enchanted evening out for the family in the wintertime, will this event cast a spell of Cashiosum Disappearo on your wallet? Let's see how much this thing costs. Let's say I'm going to take a family of 4 to this event. Okay, 8:45 is open. We'll get the Family Deluxe Bundle. That's 4 tickets. Okay, so that's $586 on its own. We're going to get parking as well, another $30. And of course, the kids are going to want illuminating wand add-ons, and 2 of those, that's another $150. So let's see what this is going to do. $833. Now compare that to the Bright Nights event that used to be held in the park at this time of year. Just $16 for an adult ticket and $12 for a child. Some on social media had words for the prices, including curses, not the magic kind. And on the streets,
that sounds like a lot of money. It's pretty expensive.
Christmas one was better and more affordable.
The ABC Civic Party platform, which a majority of park board commissioners were elected under in 2022, promised to make it easier for events, performers, and sports organizations to use parks and recreation facilities. This event has been held in a number of cities globally to a variety of reactions. So, will fans shell out here?
The franchise in general is like huge.
This academic who studies fandoms points to the incredible draw Harry Potter holds over generations of fans.
Like apart from their permanent space in like Florida, then people actually fly to Florida. This is why I think they're confident about pricing it that way.
We'll see if fans are charmed enough to spend their golden galleons when the event kicks off in November. Liam Britton, CBC News, Vancouver.
A candlelight vigil was held in Surrey on Tuesday night for the victims of unrest in Nepal. As Mira Baines explains, anti-corruption protests have escalated in the country's capital.
A candlelight prayer in Surrey calling for peace and justice in Nepal. More than 200 people dressed in black to mourn the young lives lost.
We were so disturbed. We couldn't work, we couldn't sleep at all, just watching TV online, searching around one by another.
Demonstrations began after the government blocked platforms, including Facebook, X, and YouTube. Government officials have been criticized for nepotism and high youth unemployment. Young Nepalis have been posting about corruption in the country on social media when they were cut off.
Nobody has expected this to happen, and nobody knew that, the power of Gen Z was that strong.
Rallies swelled to tens of thousands of people in Kathmandu, and crowds surrounded the parliament building before police opened fire on the demonstrators. At least 19 people have been killed and dozens of other young people injured.
People were fed up, but nobody was able to speak out openly. And this was the time the young people took things in their hands. They were not getting opportunities in jobs, no industries, no big businesses. And that is what led to that frustration. And they say, we need to decide ourselves.
Demonstrators set government buildings and politicians' homes on fire and attacked some leaders. Nepal's Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli resigned as the violent protests continued to spread. Here in BC, some members of the community say they support the younger generation in Nepal and stand with them.
We are following social media. Everyone is happy for the new change, but let's hope for the best. We want to pray for the peaceful departure of the dead soul, and also to show solidarity with those who have been fighting there.
Nepal's army has urged restraint and a peaceful solution through political dialogue. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
A murky afternoon on the west coast of Vancouver Island. Tofino seeing plenty of cloud and fog. Darius has your BC-wide weather forecast coming up soon. The Prime Minister has kicked off the Liberal caucus retreat in Edmonton with a message to Canadians. The road forward will not be easy. Mark Carney used his opening address to MPs to focus on the need to strengthen the Canadian economy against Donald Trump's tariff threats. The CBC's Rafi Boudjikanian reports on what the Prime Minister had to say from there.
There he is. Hey. Addressing his caucus, the Prime Minister made it clear he's aware summer is over and his political honeymoon may be headed the same way if he does not start to get things done.
We have to transform our economy from one that's reliant on a single trading partner, too reliant on that single trading partner, to one that's more resilient, one that's built for Canadian workers and their families on the strong foundation of Canadian industries.
To get there, Carney says he's almost ready to announce the first of the major nation-building projects his government will fund. A list that Radio-Canada has learned, at least for now, will not include oil pipelines. A Liberal source saying that there is no private investor who's willing to build that project. News that's disappointing to the Premier of the province hosting the Liberals this week, but Danielle Smith says she will convince Ottawa to change its mind.
We're in active discussions right now, and I'm very encouraged about where we're heading. But don't think that the list as it appears is the final list. We have been assured that there is pathways to get projects on the list as they become ready to be on the list.
Some Liberal MPs, meanwhile, are saying it's good for the government to take a cautious approach.
We're going to do it the proper way, and we'll see what happens. But right now, and as market analysts have said, there isn't the market case there for a pipeline, but we'll see what happens moving forward.
As I say, we'll see what the fall holds. We have promised to strengthen the industrial carbon price. We've promised to turn Canada into a clean energy superpower. I think we're going to see on the list of national projects a commitment to the transition and a clean transition. We've promised an east-west transmission grid. If we realize all of these and more, then I feel pretty good about the trajectory of our climate efforts.
All of this weighing on Carney as he prepares for a meeting with Alberta's Premier later this evening and a return to Parliament next week. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Edmonton.
To a devastating scene at a daycare near Toronto. A 1.5-year-old boy is dead and several other children injured after an SUV suddenly crashed into the building. Ithil Musa has more on how this tragedy unfolded.
It's a place where children are supposed to be safe. But when parents arrived at this daycare Wednesday afternoon, they learned the very worst had happened.
I can confirm that 7 children, ranging in age from 1.5 to 3 years old, were struck, along with 3 adult staff members. Unfortunately, I'm sad to announce that a 1.5-year-old boy has since been pronounced deceased.
Police say there were about 100 children inside this daycare in Richmond Hill, just north of Toronto, when an SUV crashed through the front window this afternoon. A man in his 70s was arrested, but police say they do not believe the crash was deliberate.
As you can imagine, this was a very chaotic scene.
Police say the car was in this parking lot before the crash happened. All of the children inside have been accounted for, they say, and their families were notified. This worker at another childcare facility nearby says news of the tragedy brought parents rushing there to pick up their children.
They ran and then they took their kids from our program too because they're scared. They don't know what happened and they don't trust anymore.
Richmond Hill's mayor says this is the saddest thing he's ever experienced while on council.
I'm a parent and I'm a citizen of this community, first and foremost, and this is just something that no parent ever wants to deal with, and it doesn't matter how old your kids are. This is something that, that can be related to. This is every parent's worst nightmare.
Ithil Musa reporting. Newly released data is revealing many Canadians are continuing to avoid travel to the United States. That trend began after Donald Trump launched his trade war with Canada. And as Sophia Harris explains, the drop in cross-border travel could continue into the fall.
New data suggests many Canadians are continuing their boycott of U.S. travel. According to Statistics Canada, the number of Canadians returning from visits to the U.S. by land and air plummeted in August, dropping by 25% for air travel and by a whopping 34% for land travel compared with the same time last year. There are many reasons why people aren't traveling to the U.S., such as inflation and the low Canadian dollar. However, August marks the 5th consecutive month of declines, which began when U.S. President Donald Trump took office in January, started a trade war with Canada, and began referring to the country as the 51st state.
This will be indeed the golden age of America.
To express their anger, many Canadians swore off travel to the U.S. and are spending their vacation dollars elsewhere.
Europe is sort of a big hotspot this summer. The Caribbean as well. We've seen a lot of people book trips to Japan. So we're kind of also seeing sort of these different exotic, destinations, Egypt, Jordan, some other places that wouldn't have normally popped up.
Canadians traditionally make up the largest group of international tourists to the U.S., so the decline is hurting regions that rely on their business, like Las Vegas.
We have a rather large market with the Canadians. It's gone from, a faucet to a drip.
The big question now is, will the trend continue?
Only time will tell. It gets really cold here in some parts of Canada, so a lot of people do like to get away to a warmer climate.
The big test will be this fall when Canadian snowbirds decide if they will return to the U.S. Sunbelt or continue the trend of traveling elsewhere. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Toronto.
A Russian incursion into Polish airspace is raising fears the war in Ukraine could spill into Central Europe and draw NATO into the fray. A wave of armed Russian drones flew over Poland, triggering Polish and alliance warplanes to scramble and shoot them down. Crystal Gumansing reports.
Polish officials spent the day collecting weapons of war from NATO territory following a night of interceptions. Some drones nearly intact, others fragmented after a Russian aerial assault on Ukraine spilled into neighboring Poland. We are most likely dealing with a large-scale provocation, said Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk. Earlier in the day, while speaking to Parliament, he said the situation brings us the closest we have been to open conflict since World War II. Poland says 19 Russian objects violated its airspace Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. Those deemed a threat were shot down with the help of NATO. Russia's defense ministry says it did not plan to attack Poland.
Whether it was intentionally or not, it is absolutely reckless.
NATO Secretary General acknowledged Poland's request for consultations under Article 4. That does not trigger a defensive response, but a discussion on next steps.
I've asked our UK armed forces to look at options to bolster NATO's air defence over Poland.
Canada's Minister of National Defence said multiple parties are gathering information about the violations.
Given the extent to which President Putin has been called out, his unwillingness to have adult conversations about ceasefires, the games he appears to be playing, these are worrisome, but to a large extent also predictable.
Just last week, Poland scrambled jets to protect its airspace from Russian violations. The difference this time is the scale of the incident. It's the Russian president probing NATO boundaries, says this Polish professor.
This is the next step of Putin, basically trying to see what works with NATO, where the limit actually is of his actions.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky tonight is calling for a joint system of defense to create an air shield over Europe. Crystal Gumansing, CBC News, London.
Israel is facing a new wave of backlash tonight after its deadly strike in Qatar targeting Hamas leaders. Paul Hunter reports on the global condemnation it's facing and the new comments from Canada.
Inside Gaza, this again. The day after that stunning Israeli strike targeting Hamas leaders in Qatar, yet another strike here. What do we feel? Said Abu Ala Kudai. Absolute terror. While north of Tel Aviv, Israeli demonstrators shouted at Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to end the war with Hamas now. But from Netanyahu himself, defiance.
And I say to Qatar and all nations who harbor terrorists, you either expel them or you bring them to justice. Because if you don't, we will.
The deadly strike in Qatar left the Hamas leadership intact, says Hamas, but it has upended attempts at any ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war, and it's further fueled pushback against Israel.
Europe needs to do more.
The European Union Commission calling for trade sanctions against Israel. And to the question, will Canada now also consider such sanctions, said Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand.
We are evaluating the relationship with Israel.
Anand's office later saying what she meant is that Canada is, quote, constantly monitoring the situation.
This is state terror. That's what I call it.
Qatar itself now speaking out, its prime minister slamming Netanyahu at length.
We were thinking that we are dealing with civilized people. That's the way we are dealing with others. And the action that he took, it's very, I cannot describe it, but it's a barbaric action.
And unacceptable for the world, he said, adding Qatar is now organizing an Arab Islamic summit for the coming days to consider next steps. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
A UBC engineering alumnus turned professor has won the James Dyson Award for Design Innovation. She created an eco-friendly, fully compostable menstrual pad. Rashmi Prakash founded Aruna Revolution Health in 2021 when she began this journey, and she joins us now. Rashmi, first of all, congratulations on your achievement. How did you do this?
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me. I started this and I created this through a lot of engineering processes, to be honest. I was working at the hospitals during the pandemic as a clinical engineer, and I saw the huge amount of waste being generated by the healthcare industry and realized that we needed to do better. And as a biomedical engineer, I realized it was my responsibility. And so that's what motivated me to start Aruna Revolution. And I realized in my own life, the healthcare products that I was using, like the menstrual products, not only were they not comfortable for me to use, but I realized that the amount of environmental harm that it was causing, which in turn was turning into microplastics and coming back to harm our health. And that's really how I got this started.
And now that you've created this fully compostable menstrual pad, what makes it biodegradable? How'd you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So our pad is not just biodegradable, but it's fully compostable. And how we've done this is by understanding what a compostable product is. So we've worked directly with compost manufacturers to make sure that we fully understand what it takes for a product to break down, and what we've put into it are natural cellulose fibers. So we have developed a process to be able to extract natural cellulose fibers from any kind of plant, and so we're working with Canadian farmers right now and extracting cellulose fibers from that. And then we take that and turn that into compostable menstrual products, which are safer for the body because they don't contain any of the harmful chemicals. You don't have the plastic contamination, but also they're better for our planet because they will compost in just 30 to 60 days compared to products on the market that currently take over 500 years to break down.
So with this innovation, what else do you see this technology that you've created be used for? And one thing when I heard about this is I'm wondering about, for example, diapers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I have this dream of the world that we want to live in. And in that world, there's all the healthcare products that we're using. They will be fully circular. None of them are ending up in landfills. None of them are causing harm to our planet. And all of them are equitably accessible to everyone. And so that's really what I hope to do in the future with the technology, is take it and apply it to all of the healthcare products on the market, whether that's diapers, incontinence, or even the medical PPE. Think of all the medical PPE we used during the pandemic as well, and create it into circular, high-performing products that we can then turn into compost after we use it.
Why did you feel, as in your words, a responsibility to do this?
Oh, that's a great question. after having lived in Vancouver for so long, it's hard to ignore the significance of nature in our life. You know, Vancouver is one of the most beautiful places in the world. And as someone that loves hiking and getting out into nature, I realize how important it is for our health and for our well-being and for our future as well. And so I felt a responsibility to ensure that we're taking care of it. But also I realized that people want to use better products. They just don't have access to them. And as engineers, and specifically as biomedical engineers, it is our responsibility to create these products in a way that people are comfortable using them and that will then responsibly be able to be disposed of once we're done using with them. And so I think that inherent responsibility as an engineer, but also as someone who loves nature and hiking and gardening, I think it kind of came together to create this.
Rashmi Prakash, CEO and co-founder of Aruna Revolution Health and UBC adjunct professor. We appreciate your time and your expertise. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Scientists are finding out just why summer feels hotter and hotter now. They say it's not just a Canadian, but a global phenomenon. And much of the blame is on one single source. We'll tell you more after this. Many Canadians suffered through numerous heat waves this summer in almost every region of the country, ours included. It's part of a global trend made worse by climate change. And new research says much of it would not have happened without the emissions from big oil and gas companies. The CBC's Anand Ram has the details.
Pick a city almost anywhere in the world this summer, and chances are people went through a heat wave. Parisians in August, Muscovites in July.
We have 6 coolers behind us right here, and they're done by 12 o'clock.
And Canadians weren't spared either. For years, scientists studied the what? Climate change. Now researchers in Europe are calling out and calculating the who.
We have a scientific gap in the link between emitters and the extreme events.
The study took 2 decades of heat waves, analyzing them against 180 major carbon emitters, from the former Soviet Union, China's coal industry, to multinational oil and gas companies like Shell, Chevron, BP, and ExxonMobil. Using the total emissions of those organizations, it showed they've all added to the intensity of heat waves around the world, and concluded that any one of them increased the probability of a heat wave happening at all.
Even if they represent just a little bit of warming, sums up. And when you sum a lot of little contributions, it's become a lot of global warming.
To some experts, this research more firmly connects the dots, from the burning of fossil fuels to climate instability.
They are really detrimental to our livelihoods. And I think by showing this in different ways, using different lines of scientific evidence, that argument gets much easier to make.
But it's the arguments in court that this research may help, potentially turning devastation into financial damages.
Lay out a methodology for doing this. I think that will empower lawyers and citizens who have been hurt by these incidents to realize that they don't have to do the science themselves. They don't have to reinvent the wheel.
With more climate litigation being heard around the world, the study's findings could soon be tested in a case. But for now, it's a small link in a chain of evidence that tries to explain scorching summer days. We reached out to several oil and gas companies. Among those carbon emitters, most didn't respond or declined to comment. Pathways Alliance, representing Canadian oil companies, said it cannot comment without further reviewing the research. Anand Ram, CBC News, Toronto.
Our science and climate specialist Darius Madavi here with a BC-wide weather forecast and keeping an eye on that lightning and thunder.
That's right. Mostly just confined to the southeastern corner of the province today. Like I said earlier in the show, not nearly as widespread as we saw it yesterday, although there is still a risk that some might pop up in parts of the southern interior. That risk has been coming down a little bit as we get later into the evening. I do want to talk a little bit about the smoke that we saw. This is yesterday. Again, really hitting parts of the Caribou very hard, all that smoke. But Prince George escaped it a little bit yesterday. As we look at our forecast for the next 24 hours, you can see that smoke starting to drift a little bit further north, meaning Prince George likely to start to get more of that smoke over the next 24 hours or so, and likely continuing into Friday as well. Again, though, although we are going to expect to have some haze here in Vancouver, mostly coming down, for the most part, things don't look too bad here. Again, haze tomorrow seems pretty likely, but Friday seems a little bit better. But again, smoke forecasting can change very quickly, so take that with a bit of a grain of salt. Here are our highs for tomorrow. Again, you'll notice temperatures in the southern interior really not changing too much over the next few days. We'll see a little bit more heat build in tomorrow, but as we get later into the weekend, those temperatures should start to come down quite a bit, especially up in the northeast. Across the board in the interior, temperatures are much closer to seasonal than they have been in recent weeks, so a little bit of improvement there as well. Some precipitation is expected to start heading down the coast, but really not expected to make it nearly as far south as it was before. You'll notice this model. So here, this is one model that we have. This is a more fine resolution model, but doesn't go as far out. Then we switch to the European model, and you'll notice that one does have the rain coming down to Vancouver. I'm not going to rule it out entirely, but it is definitely seeming less likely that we're going to get much rain. I'd say on Sunday, maybe we get a few light showers, but probably not that wave of precipitation that it looks like this model has in it. Most of the models now definitely are leaning towards a drier situation down here and more of that rain hitting the Central Coast, maybe the North Island. But still, I know Environment Canada doesn't have it in their forecast, but I'm crossing my fingers for some rain on Sunday. Fire danger has come down in the south, but remains very high in the north, as we talked about earlier in the show. Here's our smoke forecast. Again, very heavy in parts of the central interior. But other than that, we're not looking too bad. Maybe the boundary region gets a decent amount tomorrow. And here's our forecast for the next 5 days. Dan, again, clearing out in the morning. That's going to continue to be the story. That marine cloud clears out in the morning, and then we start to see some more sunshine in the afternoon.
Okay, Doris, thanks very much.
Thank you.
The Canadian Navy is traversing the Arctic Ocean looking for ghost ships as new sea routes open for global trade. We will bring you an exclusive look at what that exercise is and means next.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC inbox.
Calling all soccer fans, don't miss the last Vancouver Rise home game of the regular season at Swangard Stadium on Saturday, September 20th. Come take your shot at a CBC host and share your soccer stories for a chance to win some great prizes. And don't miss out on contests, special series, events, and plenty more with CBC's e-newsletter. Subscribe at cbc.ca/Vancouver inbox right now.
We have a CBC News exclusive to share with you now, a rare look at an important Canadian military exercise underway in the Arctic.
The goal is to assert Canadian sovereignty in a region other nations have become increasingly interested in as climate change opens new sea routes as well as access to valuable mineral deposits. The CBC's David Common watched it all unfold on board the Navy's HMCS William Hall.
He'll can check all the inlets and basically flesh out the small vessels.
On board one of the Canadian Navy's newest vessels, a search has just been launched. The crew, joined by a Coast Guard helicopter, combing these vast Arctic waters for a small vessel that doesn't want to be found.
How do you actually proceed now?
So now that we've been tasked for it, we're going to go and take a look and try and find this person.
This is only a practice scenario, but Commander Scott Kellerman makes sure his crew treats it like it's real.
It could be something that could be very challenging to find.
Then we'll be able to go in with our small boats and the RCMP detachment.
This is not some far-fetched scenario. Just this summer, Canada launched surveillance aircraft to monitor the Zhulong 2, a Chinese vessel purportedly for research, but it's also believed to have military application. An independent researcher also tracked a Canadian Coast Guard vessel mirroring that Chinese icebreaker's transit. While last summer, it was Canada's Navy shadowing a Chinese vessel.
These research vessels have a wide range of purposes, some of which may not exactly be in Canadian interests.
For instance, another Chinese ship crossed Canada's Northwest Passage in 2017. It would be capable of mapping the sea floor to create maps for future surreptitious travel by Chinese submarines, as well as to identify vast critical mineral reserves in the Arctic.
We have located the VOI. We will be closing it in the next 90 minutes.
Back on board the ship in Nunavut, the suspect vessel has been located, and the Navy moving to intercept, sending 2 RCMP officers.
Could they be looking at a sensitive military site? Is it just people we don't know? And so that vessel that's going very fast there now has the RCMP on board, and they're going to go to intercept and possibly arrest those on shore.
On arrival, the Mounties approach, meeting a group of Inuit people who are assisting in the simulation. They then proceed to make arrests. In this scenario, the Coast Guard members playing potential spies found with Russian military intelligence ID. David Common, CBC News, Eclipse Sound, Nunavut.
So cool to see the training in action, but you look at the map and we see it every day. The vastness of this territory, this country, to have to monitor like that, amazing, and particularly as those sea routes open up because of climate change and other factors, right?
So much ice to get through.
Oh my gosh. Unreal.
Terrain. Thanks for being with us tonight. You can watch this newscast on CBC Gem, our free app, as well as on YouTube and our website, cbc.ca/BC.
And we will have your next local news at 11 o'clock, right after the National. Good night.